We're going to be discussing dealing with the DIY, do-it-yourself pest control craze, all on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, dealing with all things pest today. Hey, we're going to be discussing dealing with the DIY, the do-it-yourself pest control craze that seems to be really bothering a lot of people, and understandably why. And we're going to be discussing how to deal with that. But before I do that, I want to just remind you, hey, join the Pest Geek Society. We've got a website. We've got a YouTube channel. We've got a website that we're building out right now that is just going to be phenomenal. We're getting ready to redo that website. I haven't done it. I just did this as a test for 2 years, and test successful. We've launched a 7-day-a-week podcast, and we're also going to be doing some YouTube, and we're doing a lot of blogging right now that we're going to get started on. This podcast has just been unbelievable how well it's doing and how receptive people have been to it. And it's time to take it to the next level. So join the group. We also got a pest control group on Facebook, which is the Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group. So look for that. Sign up, get in, comment on this. Let's figure out a way that we can really help the industry, especially the independent, especially the small business guy. Like I said before, and I've said it 1,000 times, the large guys, they've already figured this out. We're the ones that need the help. And unfortunately, there really isn't a whole lot of help for us because we are not big buyers. We've had this discussion before. What do we need from associations? The reality is associations are never going to give us what we need. We have to get together, bond together, and do things together as small guys that'll help us compete and win. And this podcast is just a stepping stone to that. So go ahead and join in on the conversation and help each other out. But we're going to be discussing the dealing with the DIY, do-it-yourself pest control craze. People are losing their mind over this. I've been in a lot of industries. I've been fortunate to see in just about every single industry you can think of. I've done just about everything in service industry. I've done pretty much everything to a home except roofing, probably. I've never done roofing. I'm not about to get 20 feet in the air in the heat or in extreme cold and potentially fall off and kill myself. Not going to happen. But I don't like heights. Anything above, I think, 16 feet is too high for me. So no, I'm not going to be climbing up to a second story to do anything. But I've done just about everything. And I have this, I remember I was 10 years old. I think I was 10 years old, around 10 or 11. And Home Depot came to South Florida. And they opened up one about maybe a mile from my house. And when I drove by there, I rode on my bike, and I would go really far on my bike. My mother knew where I'd been on my bike. She'd die. But I went everywhere on my bike. And I would go to this Home Depot, and I would just be like, my jaw just dropped. I mean, this is like, I don't know, like going to New York and going to that giant department toy store. And I just lost my mind in New York, and going in there as a kid for the first time. I remember when I was living in Jersey, there used to be a department store and malls and department stores, and one was Bamberger's. And as a kid, I would go in there and see the size of this thing, and it was just jaw dropping. And I went into this Home Depot, and you mean I can buy, as a kid, thinking I can get into the home remodeling business because I can now buy everything I need. And I've been a business guy since I was a kid. I mean, I already knew how to do electrical connections. high voltage electrical connections on a 110 by the time I was 10 or 11. I mean, I rebuilt my first carburetor at like 16. I rebuilt my first engine like at 17, 18 by myself. I already knew how to weld. I knew how to solder. I knew how to weld with contact welders. I've been doing all this stuff all my life. I mean, I've been really handy and I enjoy it. And I used to do electronics. I mean, I was working with LED before anybody knew what an LED was. Anything that had to do with anything, I was interested in it. And I would so by the time I was like 14 or 15s, I could go buy a solder and go fix somebody's, water spigot, and charge them $20 for resoldering their water spigot or something. And I remember that all the guys that were in the construction business and the remodelers and everything like that, they used to buy from suppliers. And I would hear the comments that, our industry, now we're all going to go out of business because, customers are going to be able to buy the same thing I mean, you can go into Home Depot and buy an electrical panel. I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody that's going to replace their own electrical panel. Electricians didn't go out of business. Nobody went out of business. The industry is still the same. The numbers don't change. The percentage of people that pay for things to get things done to their home is the same no matter what era you're in. The numbers haven't changed. When, HGTV started, when I remember being a kid and watching This Old House and just totally flabbergasted as a kid. Where kids were watching cartoons and they were playing with their Atari, I was watching, Bob Vila, and I was watching these guys on, all these on PBS doing all these repairs to the house. One day I wanted to be a contractor. I almost did become a GC a couple years ago. The stuff that you have to do when you're a GC down here to make money, it just didn't appeal to me. But I had the offer on the table to become a GC, a general contractor, and I decided to stay in pest control and do this. But I remember people are like, now everybody, and then HGTV came out and all the home repair channels came out. And they're going to destroy the industry because everybody is now going to do their remodeling job. I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried to lay down 1,000 feet of tile, you're going to need new kneecaps by the time you're done. If you've never done it, and to try to figure out how to make those tiles align takes a lot of practice. Guess what? The industry didn't go out of business. As a matter of fact, more people are now demanding things they see there, which cost a fortune, from their contractors saying, yeah, we can do that, but that's going to cost you an arm and a leg, your firstborn, and a pint of blood. And people will pay for it because they saw it on HGTV. And then, people could buy stuff over the counter forever. There isn't a single home that I don't walk in that doesn't have an over-the-counter pesticide in it, which is kind of disturbing to begin with. And we're going to explain why. But then somebody had the audacity to be a market disruptor and create a place where you can go and buy professional products online called DoMyOwnPestControl.com. And they disrupted the market, putting a big dent, by the way, into the sales that are over the counter from the hardware stores from places like Home Depots and Lowe's and Ace Hardware and every other, do-it-yourself place. Making millions. And people are having a fit in the pest control industry that these people are doing that they shouldn't be allowed. Listen, I'm in the industry. I sell my services. I compete in a cutthroat industry. It's like a lot of you do. There's always the lowball guy doing the lowball work. It's no different in landscaping. I've done landscaping. It's no different in pool service. It's no different in roofing. It's no different in painting. I got guys here, when it used to cost $3,000 to paint a house, you got guys doing it for like $1,000 or $1,100. That's the cost of the paint alone. How they're getting it done, I don't know. But it's the way it is in every industry. We're not exempt. And what we're dealing with is the client buying a pesticide that is professional, and the manufacturer's not protecting us. The distributor's not protecting us. Nobody's protecting our industry. You know, National Pest Management isn't protecting our industry. They shouldn't be allowed to buy professional products over the counter. Okay, I'll give you that. But let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at the reality. The reality is that for 50 years, the numbers have not changed. Only 20% of homeowners will ever pay a professional pest control company to do professional pest control. That also happens to be the number of the top 20% of the moneymakers in the country. The numbers align. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, you're making $200,000 a year, you're in the top, probably entering into the top 10%, if not 5% of the moneymakers. You are the guys that are paying for pest control. People who don't want to do it themselves. People who want a professional to do it because it just isn't worth their time. They don't want to deal with the hassle. By the time you get in your car, you go buy the product, you come back and you apply it, and you reapply it, and you reapply it, and you reapply it, and you fail. Go back, go look for another product, come back and repeat the process again, and you failed. Go online, spend endless hours trying to figure this out. By the time you're done, the average client, if you interview the average client, you add up the number of products they try to use to control a problem in their home. A serious problem. I'm not talking about the prevention, and we're going to get into that. A serious problem. The hours they've spent that they've lost from being with their families, doing this or whatever, is greater than the cost of hiring a professional to do it. That's the reality. I go into homes and say, I don't know what you're going to do. We've already tried everything, so I don't know what you're going to do any differently. And then I got to go in and explain why they failed. Why they got roach tablets all over the place. Why they got boric acid in every corner spilled behind the refrigerator, inside the cabinets. Why they used stations, roach stations all over. Why there is combat gel bait all over the counters and on every door, and it looks like somebody caulked the back of the counter. And why did they use the fogger? And why did they use the spray? And they've used 5 products, which all say kill roaches, and yet they can't kill a roach. They couldn't kill the roach if they stepped on it. As a matter of fact, they don't even want to come to their kitchen anymore. It's gotten so bad because what the 3 things they don't understand is roach biology and how that chemistry works in conjunction with every other chemistry and how they totally destroyed every product they ever used. And they think roaches eat boric acid. Roaches do not eat boric acid. In order to make a roach eat boric acid, you got to add a food attractant to it. So either, sugar or something to it to get that roach to eat it. Roaches don't look at the corner of a building and say, oh, look, yummy, boric acid. I think we'll just go over there and eat that and die. It just doesn't work that way. They don't understand the biology. They don't understand the chemistry. They don't know the difference between a class 1 and a class 2 and a class 3 insecticide. They don't know the difference between a pyrethroid and a neonicotinoid. Here's what every customer will ask me, though. They'll ask me when I'm getting ready to do my professional service. By the way, we are a very branded company, which a very unique selling point. We are an eco-friendly company, which we sell eco-friendly pest control, and we do have organic and natural, and about 50% or more, I would say probably about 60% of our services are all natural and organic. And then they will say, is this safe? And then I look at their kitchen, and I said, and I look at them in the eye very honestly, and I said, ma'am, sir, you have contaminated this kitchen with what you've done 1,000 times more than I ever will as a professional in 10 years to 20 years of servicing your home. Somehow people think that over-the-counter products, because they're sold to them, still believe this, that they are more toxic. What we use is more toxic than what they're doing. We're going to show you that that is not true. That actually your products are actually as toxic or even more toxic than anything I would ever use. First of all, let's look at the cost. Ortho Home Defense 1 gallon ready to use perimeter indoor insect killer. Home Depot, $6.97 a gallon. By the way, there's 2 SDSs on this, which is blind blowing. But the SDS that's on the website, one has a signal word of caution. The other one has a signal word of warning. The DIY pest control company customer has no idea what that means. They don't know what an SDS is. They don't know what an LD50 is. Yet, I don't have anything on my truck that is above a signal word of caution. I don't have it. Yet they're buying products with warning labels, and they don't even know between warning and caution. They think it's synonymous with, they just have to put it on there because, you want to warn people. It's like putting, a peanut butter jar, which I think is moronic, contains peanuts. No kidding. You mean that giant label in the front that says peanut butter in like 18 point font. And you got to put a 12 font caution in the back of that says warning, contains peanuts, allergen. I mean, as a society, that is how stupid, in the age of increased knowledge and awareness and information, how stupid we are as a society. That you would sue a manufacturer for not warning you that your child is going to go into anaphylactic shock if he eats a jar of peanut butter that's labeled peanut butter. Really? I mean, that's where we've gotten, folks. But anyway, I digress. You've got 2 SDSs. They have no clue what that is. They don't read the label, which tells them exactly how they should have used all those products that they bought. They did not read one iota of those labels. They just went in and applied it. By the way, I don't know where they got their information on how they should apply that product, but they applied it. If we did that as a professional, we would end up in jail. We really would, because it is illegal for us to apply a product which there's a federal warning on every single chemical product that says it is against federal law to use this product inconsistent with its labeling. If you applied that product to your home, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's over the counter or whether it's professional, and you apply it over the counter, understand, and you applied it incorrectly, and your child gets sick, you have no one to sue. You can't sue the manufacturer. If your child gets toxicity from that, if your pet gets toxicity, you cannot sue the manufacturer because you did not read the label that told you how to apply it, and you applied that product how you thought you could apply it. And you violated the label, and by violating the label, you're on your own. Yet we have to, as pest control people, we have to read and memorize that label and make sure we don't violate it, because we can get sued for violating the label. Homeowners are not held to that standard, even though the product that they're buying over the counter is just as lethal or even more lethal than what we use. And we don't use lethal products. I mean, I'm talking about for the insect. There's no such thing really as a product anymore that's sold over the counter that carries a warning or has skull and bones on it. Most of the products we use, according to the EPA, are considered relatively safe, or safer than what they used to be. You can't legally say the product is safe because it kills something. It kills an insect. It has an effect on metabolisms. It has an effect. It's how you apply it. When a customer takes and sprays their entire kitchen down, and they start spraying that spray over the counters, I've seen it. Have you applied this on the counter? Yeah, we applied it all over the counter because they had an ant trail. I could never apply or would never apply anything that I use on a surface that's going to come in contact with food. That is just moronic. Yet a customer will do it and think nothing of it to use an over-the-counter product and spray it all over their counters and then wipe it down and think that that product is not even there because they wiped it down. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Now, what are you going to use? What you're going to use is that toxic to my dog? Really? I mean, this is because people think that product is really, it's watered down. They don't sell us anything really toxic. You haven't read the label. You haven't read the SDS. I got links here to the product, SDSs. So if you're a homeowner and you're listening to this, if you're a building owner and you're listening to this and you're thinking that because you're buying it over the counter, it's not, you haven't understood what we understand as professionals. And that's the difference. The Ortho Home Defense 1 gallon ready-to-use product is a 5% bifenthrin solution with a 0.0125 zeta-cypermethrin. So basically you have 2 class 3 insecticides, 2 pyrethroids combination. One is cyano group, the other one is not. One is at a little bit above 1%, it's at 5%. If you're a professional, you already see where I'm going with this. That right there, that bifenthrin, it's almost at max label rate. At what we would apply it as a professional. It's the same dosage. Zeta-cypermethrin, we can't get in a liquid. But if you look at this and Telstar extra granules, it's bifenthrin and zeta-cypermethrin. Same darn thing that they can buy over the counter. Without a license. Without insurance. Without proving that you know how to use the product. Yet they can buy the same darn thing as we do. You take that little bottle but the advantage of that little bottle at $6.97 a gallon is that you got a power wand. Whew, that thing will put out power. You don't have to pump anything, man. You just squeeze that trigger. And boy, do you got a powerful tool in your hands. Okay. So now you spray all the entry points. You spray the bottom of the kitchen floor. You spray the inside of the cabinets. And you should have control. What the customer doesn't understand, that we understand, is that killing an insect and getting control is not the same thing. Anything will kill an insect. You can take soap and water and kill a trail of ants. You take dishwashing soap, which if you're going to kill stuff on your countertop, take Windex. It will kill ants. All right, spray your countertops with Windex, please. You can take soap and water and spray it on your countertops, and you're going to get control of ants. You're going to kill ants. Doesn't mean you're going to get rid of the infestation. Doesn't mean you're going to control that nesting site. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it out of that structure. It means you can kill it. You can kill it with anything. But at a half an ounce, which some of you use bifenthrin at a half an ounce for maintenance, it's 0.031%, which is far less than, Ortho Home Defense. At a 0.062, which is just above a 0.5, it's at 1 ounce per gallon. The cost, if you go to domyownpestcontrol.com and buy it, it's $1.71 a gallon. You're paying $6.97 a gallon to get that power wand. Ooh. I think you're getting ripped off. I think you buy a $9 sprayer and do the same thing. If you're going to do it yourself. Problem is you're using one product. And then you'll go to the store and buy another product. Here's the reality. You don't know that you're buying another pyrethroid, which is in the same class 3. So you can be buying 8, 9, 10 products, and you are applying the same darn thing you were applying before because you don't know how to go look back at that label and say, what is bifenthrin 0.5%? And then go home and Google it. And then read 100-page, dissertation on bifenthrin and the fate of bifenthrin in the environment to understand how it breaks down. When you apply it to that concrete floor and you realize that it gets eaten up within a couple of days. When you're applying to your windows and doors, that the sun is going to break it down in about 28 days. But it says it will last up to 12 months. I used it I read people's comments. I used it 6 months ago and I don't have a single roach in my house. Well, you had one American roach that walked in. Doesn't mean that that thing got control of it. You see, so that's a big difference between saying I had one roach that I saw and I used this and I haven't seen another single roach. So you can buy it. People talk about, how much chemical is being sold over the counter and how much we're applying. We will apply far less chemical, literally, than a homeowner. I mean, I do an entire kitchen in a 3,000 square foot home, including the bathrooms. With my crack and crevice, I don't contaminate a floor. I don't contaminate the inside of the cabinet. I don't contaminate any surface. Nobody will ever come in contact with this product. And I will do it with about 4 ounces of crack and crevice spray. And I will get control without contaminating a darn thing. I know what burns you up. The fact that somebody can buy the same chemical we're using without any licensing, without any training, without understanding they're violating federal law, without paying for insurance, without paying for marketing, without paying for medical insurance, without paying taxes, without paying rent, without paying fleet, without paying tolls, without paying 100. I've got literally my expenses on my P&L is 57 line items of expenses. Do all that and then try to make it past your first year in business and have a profit, because after 3 years, if you don't have a profit, you're pretty much a hobby, and the federal government says you need to make a profit. The industry is a $6 billion a year industry, yet only about between 180 million is chemical sales. And let's say at the top with rodent cases and traps and everything, it could topple $600 million. In retail and in wholesale. It's not a whole lot, considering that way over 50 million is sold in hardware stores alone across the country. I get what burns you, but here's what you've got to put everything in perspective. Stop looking at this. Stop being so overly consumed by it. When I walk into a home and I see a Thermador bottle, I refuse to service that home. There is no way I'm taking on that liability of somebody who applied Thermador, probably illegally to their own home, and then I'm going to take the rap for it. What's going to end up happening is lawyers are going to drop contracts that if you applied any pre-existing chemical that's in that home, how are you going to prove who contaminated you? Because I guarantee you it wasn't the professional. Very few times. You hear about it in the news, but the most of the professionals I talk to and I know are actually worried about, this, and they take it very seriously. At least the ones that listen to this podcast. You don't listen to this podcast if you are a guy that just doesn't care about how you perform your service. This is not the podcast for you. You might as well listen to the Goonie Goo Goo podcast. But that's where we are, folks. And you need to worry more about educating your client than getting offended. I spend most of my time talking to my clients about these issues, how they need to get this cleaned? How do they need to decontaminate this kitchen now because of what they did? And help them not do it again. Because there's no need for it. And if you want to do it yourself, and after I'm done cleaning this out, and you say, Frank, I want to do my own, preventive service, here's the list of chemicals you need. You need to read those labels. There's my blog. Go read it. Go do it. If you can't solve it, but understand that based on demographics, they're not my client. I don't beat myself up over it. I don't beat people up over it. I don't lose sleep over it. I know who my clientele is. I know who my target market is. I know my demographics. I know who I develop these services for. And I charge based on what I have to do and the time that I have to spend with that client to solve their problem. I don't compete with the big boxes saying, well, so-and-so is, this big company is charging us, 125 and 65 every other month. Great. But, here's what we sell. This is what we offer. This is what we do. If you want a large company, great. If you want a small local company that's going to treat you well, this is who we are. If you're the only concern is you have is price, but you don't know what they're going to do, here's exactly what we're going to do for you. And here's why you want to go with us. And they're coming with us for a specific reason because we make a brand promise to our clients. And that's the brand promise that we're not going to unnecessarily contaminate your home with anything that is not necessary to control that problem. And we have to work twice as hard as other companies are going to try to work to accomplish that for you. And that's what's on the table. And I'm gladly double everybody else because at the end of the day, they can't do what we do. They can always be a better price because they understand how to go to market. But they can't compete with quality, attention to detail. You can't do it when you have a route that has 16 stops on it a day, 20. I know guys that are on 20 plus stops a day. And they're so burned out and they're so fed up with their company. They don't have a life. I work as a business owner less than they do. And I run around. So guys, let's not make this an issue. Let's embrace it. And let's embrace it knowing that we're highly trained, we're professionals, we're capable. And people who hire us for a reason. And let's make that the things that we really worry about. This thing, whether they're buying over-the-counter professional products and they're not using us, it's not going to happen. The people that are going to use us are going to continue to use us, and those that never have, never will. That's a reality. What I wish I could do as a business owner is really serve those people that really can't afford it, but they're really hurting, like people who have bed bug problems and their landlords aren't dealing with it. People who don't have the money. As a Christian, I have an ethical and I have a moral and I have a biblical responsibility to provide for those that can't. I wish I could. But the reality is I don't have 6 hours a day to do one bed bug job for free. I just don't. I can't afford it as a small business owner. The companies that can, don't do it. I mean, think about it. These multi-million-dollar companies, they're not doing free bed bug jobs in the communities that they're serving. And they can. The same way that large companies give away shoes. Buy a pair, get a pair. You don't see this going on with the large companies. And then how are we supposed to be able to do something and help people who really need it, who can't afford it? And there's a lot of you out there who do. You see someone in need and you give away the service. You donate it. You're doing that because I hear the stories all the time. We've done it. We will continue to do a percentage of our income as tithe and offering to people who need free services, who can never afford it. There's ways to deal with this issue instead of talking bad about the client or getting upset or getting irate at what's happening. It's happened. It's always going to happen. And we just need, as professionals, to understand this. Guys, I hope I've been helpful. I hope this podcast is helpful to you. I will see you again tomorrow, folks. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.